Good evening, everyone. Hope you're having a pleasant day. Welcome to our show. If I ask you a favor, share this out to people. Let people know what's going on. Good current information. I think you'll like it. Support us by spreading this around. We'll get going shortly. Once people join on, we'll do a little music and we'll start the show.
Oh, I want to ask a favor too.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I want people to follow us on our social media accounts. You can follow us at 88.1 FM Fargo Moorhead on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter at media_PPP. And you can find us at Duke1517 on YouTube. And what's the Twitch?
A Mexican Crossing Lines.
That's right. And how can folks leave us a message and check out our website to donate to our nonprofit media platform?
That's right. You can go to kpppfm.com. We have our old shows on there, our history, our programs, and also a place where you can donate to our nonprofit organization. It's a tax-deductible donation, kpppfm/donate. You can also call us on our message line, 701-566-0917. Leave us a message. Go up to about 3 minutes. If you don't want it played on the air, make that specific. If you want something played on the air, we'll see what we can do about it.
And if you want to send me a private message or Duke a private message, you can reach us at our emails at cindy@kpppfm.com or duke@kpppfm.com.
Yeah, that's totally right. Well, we're going to get going now. And keep tuned. Fasten your seatbelts. We're not in Kansas no more.
Welcome, everyone, to A Mexican Crossing Lines with your host, Cindy Gomez-Schempp.
And Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You're listening to 88.1 FM KPPPLP Radio here in Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. And tonight, I'd like to talk to you about opportunistic media. We have had a lot of change in our media landscape over the last decade. We created a media platform, a radio station, a nonprofit radio station that allows us to produce local, independent content. And one of the reasons why we felt it was necessary and why we started almost a decade ago, think about it, Duke, getting involved in figuring out a way to create media opportunities and work on media justice, because we could see that our media was becoming much more consolidated into the hands of just a few individuals, and that it was becoming very divisive, very siloed. You know, the messages were kind of in a wind tunnel, and if you were in this particular silo, you heard nothing about what was going on. Media has become so unbalanced. It's extreme. It's extremist on one side or on the other in many cases. And look, we don't claim to be completely unbiased. We, like everyone else on this planet, have our own thoughts and opinions and ideas about things. But we try to be balanced. We try to, without sensationalism, give you the most recent and the most well-researched, cited to information that we can unearth, that we can uncover. And we do show our receipts at this program all the time. We try to make sure people know.
All the time, and it actually bothers me when I go to other platforms and people just say stuff, but it's like, well, where can I go look that up and see more about that? You know, where did you get that information from? Just because you say it doesn't make it true. You know, so it bothers me a lot of times when I see other people just talking out both sides of their mouth, and you don't know even where to look to see if what they're saying is true.
And you know, I think a lot of folks simply regurgitate what they hear on their favorite media platform coming out of their favorite reporter or pundit. And, you know, for example, in our most recent show yesterday, I was talking about, you know, basically, I was talking about the article that was put out by Jean Guerrero about Paloma Zuniga, the MAGA clowns, and also about Oscar El Blue. And I focused on on Paloma because of what we've already researched at this program about her, and how it looked to me like the media story was staged.
Mm-hmm.
Well, folks, I was not the only one, apparently. Other people thought it was staged too. By the way, if you want to take a look for yourself at this Jean Guerrero article from KPBS, she also writes for the Daily Beast. She also frequently appears on other programs, other liberal, what you would consider liberal or left-leaning programs like NPR, Democracy Now. In fact, she appeared on Democracy Now. Was it just today?
It was today, yes.
She did a segment on Democracy Now, and it was really interesting, I think, what she said. But if you haven't read the article in the Daily Beast, we'll share the link with you so you can take a look at it. I'm not going to regurgitate what was said in the article. What I wanted to do was examine the writer, the source, Jean Guerrero herself, what she has said, what was put out there, because I showed you yesterday that there was a CNN crew that claimed that they were just, milling around on the Rio Grande River on the United States side, and all of a sudden they just came upon this smuggling operation in broad daylight where a guy was like ferrying people back and forth across the Rio Grande. And I showed you the same video being circulated on Paloma for Trump's associated page, America Up. And that is a right-wing, or even some people would say extreme right-wing group. And it's not the only right-wing media platform, group, political group where it was shared. In fact, I found this on the Twitter. Actually, one of our viewers sent this to me after the show. Basically, this prospect.org article is saying the same thing I said. Did CNN air a staged migrant crossing at the Rio Grande? Yes, I think they did. Mm-hmm. That's what it looks like to me. That's what I said yesterday to you. And there was, this article kind of like breaks down. It's a pretty good article. I will also share the link to the prospect.org article with you so you can take a look at that. And what it says is pretty interesting because they go to great lengths. The article is from a left-leaning blog organization called prospect.org. So keep that in mind, when considering where the information is coming from and what it's meant to do. But what they wanted to do was, reprimand this CNN reporter for being gullible and falling for this staged event. And because, as they allege in this article, the staging of this massive migrant crossing in broad daylight with the smuggler wearing a ski mask as if he already knew he was going to be on television and he didn't want to be set up, where you have all of these people on the boats wearing surgical masks as if most of them were wearing surgical masks as if they're following all of the, pandemic protocols, and wearing life vests provided by the smuggler. I mean, we've seen a lot of smuggler crossings, right? We've seen a lot of people crossing on their own and crossing in makeshift rafts or pools or other inflatables that they purchased. And there's never been these kind of safety precautions taken.
Never saw the water safety, being adhered to. And also, that guy should have covered up the number on his boat,
Right?
He had the number right there.
The Seahawk number 4.
Yeah, But yeah, that struck me real weird, too, when I first saw it. I said, everybody's wearing life jackets. I haven't seen the water safety. Like you might get a ticket, or something like that.
Well, the article also mentions that the access point from which they were filming is an area that is only accessible to U.S. Border Patrol. So the article writers basically are saying that Border Patrol, along with some of their media allies on the right, want to put stories in the media, flood the media with stories of this quote-unquote border crisis to make Biden look bad, or to make the Biden administration look bad. And that, left-wing media like CNN was gullible enough to fall for it and also circulate these bogus or staged news pieces. And this is, the fact that this lengthy article quotes and cites two different people that I guess are experts or are being considered experts on the topic of the border, and why this particular place where they were filming was only accessible to Border Patrol. So therefore, they must have all been in on the staging.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why everyone was wearing safety, vests, because you would hate to have somebody fall into the river and drown.
Yep. Being filmed by CNN. It's
being filmed by CNN and, had, in conjunction with Border Patrol activities. I mean, that would be terrible. So I was immediately red flagging a lot of the things I saw in this article, including the mention of how one of the people that confirmed that this area is accessible primarily to Border Patrol people because Mariana Trevino Wright, the executive director of the National Butterfly Center, says that she and her people from her organization go out in the river at least 4 times a week, and they'd never seen anything like this out in the daylight, out in the open. And I'm sure that she's not wrong in terms of this looking like and being a staged border crossing for the, television cameras, which I told you that it was. What bothers me is that Marianne Trevino Wright with the Butterfly Center is with the Border Support Network of people connected to the Antifa leadership that we saw that goes all the way back to the protests, the year-long protests here at Standing Rock. And those individuals with which she was working with at the Butterfly Center adjacent encampments of the Border Support Network were, in many cases, criminals, felons, violent and dangerous people, including self-reported felony human smugglers that were associated with the Border Support Network and that were working with these activists at the border. And for some reason, that's not a red flag to the people that are trying to discredit some of the reporting about what's happening at the border. Because, we have these extremes where if you're on the right, the border crisis is something new, something more horrible than anything that we've seen, and it is the most pressing and urgent problem that we have in the country, and this is the place that you should be focusing all of your attention, which is not completely true. On the other hand, on the left, you have the people that are saying there's no problem. There is no crisis. It's a manufactured crisis. There isn't any human smuggling. There's definitely not any child smuggling that we know about. I mean, the people that are working at the border and the people like these MAGA clowns being featured by Jean Guerrero in the media, they're conflating some of the activists and lawyers and people that are out there to the criminal activities. There's no conflating happening. There's evidence of what these groups have been doing. There's a reason why Maria Trevino Wright's activist friends that were at that encampment, why many of them were on a Department of Homeland Security watch list, why many of them, which self-admitted being felons, some of them violent and dangerous felons, why they were being watched and why they had been arrested in the past and why they were seen as dangerous even to their own activist campaigns. And eventually people tried to distance themselves from these violent, dangerous criminals like Evan Duke. Okay? So I think that the problem is that there is no middle ground where the left acknowledges what we know about the dangerous people that are involved in these activist groups from America that are adjacent to human smuggling operations. And how could they not be? There is, and also the cartels. And how could they not be? Because nothing that comes over the border unless sanctioned by the narco government of Mexico, by the cartels and by the smugglers and the traffickers that are pushing things across the border, including weapons and drugs. Nothing goes under their radar. So if the people that are working in these orgs and in this, activist media people, like Jean Guerrero, and I'm going to call her that because I think that it has merit what I'm saying. If these people that are working in the media have an agenda, then we can't get objective, straight information. And by the way, this staged crossing was even tweeted out by a member of Congress. Okay, so it wasn't just that they were staging this in a national media outlet. It was also being pushed out on a lot of right-wing media, and it was tweeted by Representative Cuellar. And you can see here that this comparison is showing how the right-wing media, in the form of George Salcines and Taylor Tubbs and Tim Wilkins, they tweeted about the very same boat with the same, the smuggler with the same ski mask and the same, olive green type of, or grayish type of shirt is, they're filming that, and he says, so yesterday afternoon we took a CNN film crew on a boat. I can't read that very well because it's so tiny for me. Oh, thank you. Took a crew on a boat to see our non-existent crisis. Joe Biden, you're an idiot. Only took about 10 minutes until we bumped into this. It is scary, folks. And then on the right, you have a post from, can you scroll up to see? That's Representative Henry Cuellar's account. And he is tweeting the same thing on the same day and the same boat, the same guy. So this post, it was used. I showed you when the caravans were here the last time how they used specific publications in Yes Magazine and Teen Vogue, right? How they used representatives, Congress members at the border, working with the activists, working with the crooked lawyers groups. And when I say they're crooked lawyers, I mean they are willing to work with smugglers and people that are adjacent to those committing crimes. So if anybody needs a refresher, I'll walk you through it. But let me just show you more of this article in the prospect.org, where they were talking to other people, other quote-unquote border experts, to verify that this media piece, this was a smear campaign against the migrants and trying to make it look like, oh, these people are committing smuggling operations in broad daylight, and they're doing all of this with impunity. And this was a question in the article to Felicia Rangel Samponaro. And I recognize that name as well. She was listed here as a volunteer who works with asylum seekers along the border. Well, it's not all she is. She's also a friend of Brendan Tucker's. You guys remember who Brendan Tucker is?
Oh, that guy. Yeah.
Brendan Tucker was part of that Marianne Trevino Wright Butterfly Center adjacent camp of Antifa connected activists, many of whom had records, right? Brendan Tucker was hanging out with all of them, and he was also working side by side Felicia Rangel Samprano over by Matamoros, over by Brownsville's border. You can see this is a recent post of them working together still. This is just from March 21st. Was that 3 days ago?
Yep.
This just posted, they just posted, they're working together.
Wow.
Okay. Brendan Tucker, one of the members of the Border Support Network. They're still working in that sidewalk school stuff that they were working on before. And I just want to remind everyone that Brendan Tucker was with Warren et al. On a watch list that was put together by Homeland Security that included all the people that were at this camp. This is a picture from the early days of the camp next to that butterfly center mentioned in this article in the prospect.org. And I want to just go through the names of the people that are on here and tell you which ones of these people that were part of this encampment were also in the Border Support Network and were either on the watch list or have their own legal issues. First, we will start with Brendan Tucker, who's fist raised in sort of in the foreground in that brown shirt. Mm-hmm. Next to him is Dwayne Redwater. He was part of the indigenous people that came up with from Standing Rock to Tijuana and to travel with Evan Duke. And he was on the watch list. Doug Warren is a sex worker and a guy that likes to get violent in police protests and clashes. Mm-hmm. He is next to Evan K. Duke III, who is a felon who has violent criminal history and who is a self-identified leader of Antifa. He has been investigated by the FBI for allegedly having some kind of plan to sell weapons to activists on the border. And Nate Dennison is another person that was put on that Homeland Security watch list. All of these people, most of them were on the watch list of Homeland Security. They still may be on those watch lists because of their activities and because many of these people, including Evan K. Duke and Brendan Tucker, were part of that staged event at the border. One of the staged events at the border that happened when the caravan came and Border Patrol and the migrants were put into a collision course. Yep. One of them happened where the Maria Mesa woman with her 2 twin children are seen running through the tear gas. Mm-hmm. And the second one happens at night, if you will recall, around December or January. And Brendan Tucker and Evan Duke and Lilith Sinclair and many of the people that are part of this encampment and part of this Border Support Network, part of the boots on the ground in Tijuana and at the border in Matamoros and along the border in these encampments, they were there. They just happened to coincidentally be there at a moment when there was going to be a staged event for media consumption. And of course, Evan Duke, Brendan Tucker, Lilith Sinclair, all these people that were at this clash were interviewed by the media. Guess who else this has happened to repeatedly by this person, Jean Guerrero of KPBS? Why, it's none other than Paloma herself. And I want you to think about this relationship, because if you read the article or if you listen to the Democracy Now! Interview with Jean Guerrero, she really is focused on trying to discredit Oscar El Blue Ramirez. She correctly identifies that he has over 80,000 followers, that he has worked that he has interviewed a number of very high-profile personalities such as Steve Bannon, that he's worked with America's Voice, that with these different media platforms. She has correctly identified that he has done all of these things and actually shown proof or evidence of the fact that the things that she's saying with regard to Oscar working with certain people or interviewing certain people, except for one thing. She asserts a number of occasions, both in her Democracy Now! Interview and in her article, that Oscar is a racist. And she shows absolutely zero proof. She doesn't show a quote. She doesn't, nothing. There's no evidence that he is a racist. And I point that out because I've done entire programs, a number of them, showing you in vivid detail the deep-rooted racism and loathing of Mexican people that comes out of Paloma. And Paloma for Trump. So it's interesting to me that this is that even though she is listed in the article, she clearly is not the focus of this particular person. And I think it probably has to do with the chummy relationship she has to the writer, Jean Guerrero. Here she is being interviewed by Jean Guerrero for KPBS. One of the many times she has been interviewed by her. But to hear Paloma talk about this recent article about Jean Guerrero calling her a MAGA clown, you would think they'd never met before. And they have met. And that's not the only picture that she had taken of her and Jeannie. Here's another one. Don't they look chummy?
Oh, yeah.
This doesn't look like someone that she is angry with or that she would refuse to take a picture with because she is a, left media, left-wing media.
She's even dressed up the same, like they're going clubbing or something. They got the same sort of heels on and dresses.
I don't know about the outfits, but I can tell you that the way that Paloma is leaning into her, you can just read the body language. If you're a body language person and the way that they're both smiling, neither one of these people, if you're a person, a reporter like Jean Guerrero, right? And you're interviewing these people at the border, that's one thing. These are people she claims are racist, xenophobic, dangerous to the migrants. She claims that she insinuates, I guess, in some ways that talking to Oscar, threatened her in some way. She doesn't have any chummy pictures. There's no, pictures of her with her arm wrapped around Oscar smiling, right? But there is pictures of her leaning into Paloma or Paloma leaning into her, both of them smiling. And Paloma also posts Jean Guerrero's posts. Jean Guerrero's tweet saying thousands of asylum seekers are being turned away at the border because of COVID restrictions. But today, a deported Mexican MAGA conspiracy theorist with a federal drug trafficking conviction was able to cross for a tour of the USS Midway. There, of course, she is referring to Oscar El Blue Ramirez, one of the people that she wrote about in the article. Yeah. And if you can go back to that post, because we did not finish reading it at all, I will show you that Paloma for Trump tweeted Jean Guerrero's tweet, as you can see right there. And she also complains about Oscar. She said, aside from asylum seekers, people who spend millions of dollars in America invest in merchandise to resell in Mexico. Sounds like her, doesn't it? Such as clothing, shoes, and other merchandise. have been banned from crossing into America for 12 months now. So people like her haven't been able to go back and forth, and she's pretty jealous about that and angry about that. And then she says that Oscar, but this grifter, crosses lying to DHS, claiming he is quote unquote essential to America, while millions of lives were affected by COVID shutdowns. He laughed at the system and law and order, and then he laughs now. Well, it's very clear that Oscar, represents as much of a point of jealousy and is a threat, quote unquote, to Paloma as much as he is to reporters like Jean Guerrero. But you see, and this is also very interesting because in her Democracy Now, as well as in her Daily Beast article, Jean focuses a lot on the question of how did Oscar cross legally into the United States? Because it's puzzling to her that someone that had a felony drug conviction would be given a waiver, a second chance of some sort to come into the United States.
And she's insinuating things too, because she doesn't know.
She doesn't know.
She asked him, and he didn't tell her. So
she's
she's like,
have to tell her.
She's going, oh, it's maybe because it's of this. The only way this can happen. And she talks to some unrelated person that doesn't even know anything about Oscar's case, and they say some stuff. She repeats it, so she has really no information, but insinuates something is wrong here, and she's spinning it that even to Steve Bannon. Like we called Steve Bannon, he did not respond. That how they have this felon being an expert on border crossings, and it's like,
well, let me tell you something. Like everyone else that watches and has watched Oscar cross into the United States and cross back into Mexico through the border customs checkpoints, we know that whatever his immigration status, whatever his paperwork is, it's legal because he's going through the proper points to get into the country. Mm-hmm. So that's all you need to know, and that's all that Bannon needed to know. And that's all that the people that have worked with Oscar or allowed Oscar to interview them need to know. It really isn't anybody's business what his status is, as long as you know it's legal. Sure. And it is. Mm-hmm. Because otherwise he would have been detained at the border. But see, they don't tell you that in this article and in this interview in Democracy Now. They want to focus on the conjecture of the what if. And you know who else has been stuck on stupid about that question about how is it that Oscar can come into this country? Why, it's none other than Paloma for Trump. Same person asking the same questions, and somehow this Jean Guerrero is also now, she's now consumed by the same questions, mm-hmm. which only one other crazy person on this planet has been obsessed with.
Yep.
This is an article for an audience of Paloma. These are news reports for an audience of one, and commissioned more than likely by her as well, because she's definitely bragging about the article coming out. She doesn't seem to be taking it as pejorative or damaging to her, mm-hmm. In the way that she has made very clear she thinks it will be damaging to Oscar, because she would love nothing more than to have her picture friend Jean Guerrero discredit him, because Jean Guerrero does make statements about Paloma in her article and in her interview too, but many of them are incorrect. For example, she cites Paloma as being an important influencer with tens of thousands of followers, and that is a joke. Mm-hmm. At one time, years ago, she had a page with some 80-some thousand people, but she lost that, mm-hmm. because she is so viciously destructive, stalking people, harassing people, and using social media to do that.
Yep.
That's why she lost her pages in the first place. She can't keep her stuff together. She can't manage to keep her stuff together, which is also why she was, quote unquote, possessed by a demon and pushed a migrant child. But, she claims that after that horrible mistake, one-time incident, she never did anything like that again, except for the allegations of her abusing her animals by people that also cared for her animals and had reason to know firsthand, and also abusing a disabled, nonverbal adult, woman that she had to care for, and defrauding and stalking and harassing any number of other victims, for which we showed you the proof of videos and her own words telling you these things. So it's very interesting that that Jean is now kind of the messenger
Yeah.
for this
Message.
Paloma message about Oscar. But also, let's not forget that the other people that promote Jean Guerrero are the people she works very closely to and gets many of her stories from, the lawyers at Al Otro Lado. Remember how closely Oscar, in the past several years, has been following everything that the lawyers group of Al Otro Lado has been doing, has been documenting it. Al Otro Lado also has a vested interest in making sure that this guy, Oscar El Blue, who really does have 80-some thousand plus followers and is on a number of different media platforms and has a lot of people listening to him in 2 different languages, be discredited or silenced. And just as much as Paloma wants him out of the way, so do Al Otro Lado. Here's their tweet, retweeting Jean Guerrero, talking about Oscar. Specifically, Oscar, the convicted drug trafficker, as he heads... She sounds just like Paloma,
Exactly.
right? And Al Otro Lado tweets out, part of doing, Al Otro Lado lawyers that we have covered here are Erica Pinheiro, of course, Nicole Ramos, both of whom Oscar interviewed. We went to one of the places where she was working in Clave Caracol. We did live videos from that location. And they're also celebrating here. Al Otro Lado is like, part of doing our job means having to deal with these mega trolls on a regular basis. Oscar is not a United States citizen. Oscar is a Mexican that lives in Mexico who happens to have the gift of being able to speak in 2 languages. She goes on. They go on. Not only do they endanger our staff, they endanger the lives of vulnerable asylum seekers. They love to ridicule and attack. Again, these baseless accusations, because I see no evidence of what they are saying. They've never produced an ounce of evidence of what they are saying. Duke and I went to the ABS conference in San Diego to ask a question. We had press credentials. We paid, we did everything we needed to do to get in to ask Nicole Ramos a question about asylum seeking and working as a lawyer in Mexico. This woman was so terrified of us exposing her lies, she refused to answer questions. Not only that, she tried to paint Duke and I going to Tijuana to do reporting from Tijuana as us endangering her life.
Yeah.
So this woman has a history of embellishing. These people have a history of making themselves the martyrs and the victims of danger, Will Rogers, without a shred of evidence. If he is a convicted felon and he is known to be dangerous and threatening And if in fact he is doing things that are illegal and that are putting people at risk, why haven't the Mexican officials done a dang thing to him? Why is it in fact that members of the activist groups that are working alongside Al Otro Lado have been arrested by the Mexican authorities because of their threatening and harassment of Mexican media figures like Oscar? There we have shown proof. We have shown you video of these activists and people associated with Al Otro Lado that have actually committed crimes in Mexico, unlike Jeannie Guerrero. But there's also the other angle that I forgot to mention in my last program, which I think is super interesting because Jeannie Guerrero doesn't mention any of this. It's very interesting what she chooses to write about and the things she chooses to ignore that are happening amongst the group of people that she is frequently getting stories from and featuring in her stories, like Al Otro Lado. And that is the show I told you, a cartel-connected show that I told you that featured Jean, Paloma's husband, and Paloma Zúñiga, both of whom went to a protest in San Diego that was featured as part of the show Cartel Cruise, an episode in which many interesting people connected to the border were on the show. And just to refresh your memory a bit about that show, I will show you some of the people that appeared on the Cartel Cruise show. One of them, of course, is Jean, Paloma's husband, and you can see he's got a sign, a Paloma banner in his hands. This was posted by somebody on Facebook saying, "Look what I found." Her and her husband, quote unquote, appeared in the show Cartel Cruise. Kind of suspicious. Yeah, I wasn't the only one that thought that it was really suspicious that this cast of characters all appeared together in a show called Cartel Cruise. You know who else has appeared in the Cartel Cruise show on a number of occasions? It was this woman, Chapo Guzman's wife. Chapo Guzman's wife, who is now in prison here, Emma Coronel Aispuro. And the reason I had never mentioned this before, or especially at the time that this Cartel Cruise show came out, was because I had never seen what she looks like. I mean, I saw a movie about their relationship, but I'd never seen her specifically. So when she appeared on the Cartel Cruise show that I featured on my program, talking to two of the protagonists of the show, I did not recognize. I did not recognize her. So, in addition to that, do you remember who else was on that show? They featured a quote-unquote church at the border. And this is the picture of the women from the show going with this priest who tells them that it's not technically a church. It's like certain sections that they hold these, prayer services in. Oh, yeah. And he's telling them in this screen capture that the immigration officials can't go inside of their worship bubbles. They can't bother the migrants or the people that are worshiping together. They can't arrest them or harass them if they're participating in this pseudo church at the border wall, which is not a church, which they also admit in the program. And then what else shenanigans did we see? Well, none other than Hugo Castro of the Border Angels was featured in the same show that Paloma was in. Y'all remember that? I just want to remind you of this program because Jean wrote an article of KPBS on more than one occasion about Hugo Castro. And she didn't talk about the fact that he was a bad guy. She didn't point out the fact that he was bipolar or that his family knew him to be bipolar, and that he was also a felon that had served in an American jail for drug offenses, per his own story, which he told in a video along with his baby mama, Gaba Cortez. Let me show you the article where one of the many articles that she wrote about him as an activist, as a human rights defender, as a good guy. Again, remember, he was also in an American jail for drug charges. He's also been going back and forth across the border. Hugo Castro has also been accused, and unlike Oscar, who for the past several years has been working closely around the migrant caravans and around the activists and the organizations and the shelters, and has never been arrested and charged with or investigated for smuggling activities, Hugo Castro has. Hugo Castro has been running a shelter along the border with the founder and executive director, Enrique Morones. And wow, look, here's a picture of Enrique Morones with that same pastor with the same hat that was in the Cartel Cruise show that is at the border, because Border Angels works with that bogus church. They all work together, you see. Who else was, Mr. Enrique Morones involved with? Why, the cartels themselves. In fact, he arranged a cartel wedding at the border and duped Border Patrol agents into being officiants at the wedding, for which they were later very, very angry and severed ties with this border organization. You can see a screenshot from a video from YouTube where the news story was saved, and it says there that Enrique Morones, a nationally known founder of the Border Angels, arranged a cross-border wedding for a convicted drug smuggler at Friendship Park. But even though Jean Guerrero has featured both Enrique Morones and Hugo Castro, who definitely have ties to the Mexican cartels, who have been accused by top human rights defenders connected to the president of Mexico, like Alejandro Solalinde, accusing Hugo Castro and Pueblo Sin Fronteras Irineo Mujica of smuggling people, of committing crimes, of allowing armed migrants to travel, of allowing the migrants to be exploited, abused. Jean Guerrero never mentions any of that. She features all of these people that are associated with Hugo Castro and with his migrant shelter as human rights defenders. She never shows you them, warts and all. Let me show you Playa's shelter that they stayed at. Here's that shelter that they all stayed at. Everybody has seen this shelter. You guys remember this shelter, right?
Yep.
Well, let me show you who went to this shelter. Do you remember who went to this shelter? Had no problem going in? Oh yeah, that was Paloma. Check it out. Here they are in front of the shelter. She's with Jen Harrison of the Arizona, formerly of the Arizona Patriots.
Look at that flag upside down.
And she's still doing the same stuff.
Yeah,
They have a marking of a wall, see? Of a brick fence.
It's locked.
Why? It should be
There's
open.
Paloma.
Right. Walls are immoral. Look, wall, and then our flag upside down.
It's not upside down.
Translate.
He wants to know if you want to go in.
Sure. Can you want to
Paloma?
give us a tour? Can you give us a tour?
You hear Paloma speaking? Listen carefully to what she says.
Can you give us a tour? Hola.
You just open up the door for her.
Come on, Mikey. You're my buddy. Come on, you're my bodyguard. Yeah.
You're crazy.
I know. We've done crazier things. Border cycles. Hola.
Where are we?
We're in the migrant shelter.
That's Paloma.
Why not?
And Jen
Why
Harrison.
not?
They just walked right into Hugo Castro's
You had to come and open it.
shelter.
No, they were.
Remember,
No, he had to
Hugo
come over.
Castro
Guys, if we don't
didn't
come
let
back.
people in, especially people like
know,
Oscar. He didn't get to go into this shelter. They locked that place up to people, to outsiders that they didn't want coming into their shelter. And in fact, you know, there was videos that Hugo Castro made from that shelter where he was, you know, going live as the police were trying to raid the shelter and they were trying to keep the police out.
Mm-hmm.
They were very careful about who they let in and out of that shelter. But she didn't have no problem going in and out. I just want you to think about, you know, ask yourself some questions like, how is it possible that with all of this ease, she is Jean, you know, she and Jean are connected to all of these different things, and she continues to be walking around doing her thing, but the person that has been exposing a lot of the ugly criminal underbelly activities of these American activist organizations at the border that are adjacent to criminals and smugglers, that are working directly with people accused of smuggling and criminal activity in Pueblo Sin Fronteras and Al Otro Lado, and that border encampment. They're talked about by reporters like Jean as if they were heroes. They're completely ignored in terms of their dangerous and criminal activities. And it just makes me think that, you know, this person is not obviously not an objective reporter in telling these stories. They obviously have an agenda. It sounds like they have the same agenda as Paloma does.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess you should judge for yourself whether or not you find this woman in her article writing to be trustworthy.
Yep.
I will be bringing you more revealing truths about who are the activists working in activism, and are they infiltrators or actual activists and organizers? We'll have more on that topic for you next time here on A Mexican Crossing Lines with your host, Cindy Gomez-Schempp.
And Duke Gomez-Schempp.
You've been listening to 88.1 FM KPPP LP Fargo Moorhead, where we are adding local color to your airwaves. Have a great evening. Don't forget to get your vaccination and keep wearing those masks.
That's right.
Good night, folks.